Hello and welcome to Vibrant Living Diaries, the podcast where we unlock the secrets of how you can renew your inner vitality and relearn what it means to live a life with energy and purpose. I'm your host, Danielle Grobman, and I'm proudly collaborating with the International Wellness Alliance. This alliance is home to experts across the world whose specialties allow us to cover the entire spectrum of health and wellness. Just as a disclaimer, the stances our guests take on this podcast and the topics we cover are not representative of our individual perspectives. We are here to gain a holistic understanding of all points of view. All information and advice we give here are purely for entertainment purposes. If you're planning on making any lifestyle and/or health changes based on what we cover here, please consult with your main medical wellness practitioner to find the best next steps for you to take on your wellness journey. Today we welcome Dr. Tristaca, a two-time White House Award recipient and Forbes featured leader whose work with Nerds Rule Inc. has made a global impact. As the CEO of a nonprofit, she's dedicated her life to serving underserved communities, collaborating with the United Nations, and fostering the next generation of leaders through Nerds Rule Inc. Academy. Her efforts span a wide range of initiatives from youth mentorship, teen pregnancy prevention, and advocating for global kindness and inclusivity. We're extremely thrilled to have her on, and today's episode will dive into the powerful topics such as overcoming adversity, believing in your mission and higher power, finding the right people to support you in your journey, and how to be a successful leader for both others and yourself. So without further ado, Dr. Tristaca, welcome. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So we just had a bit of a conversation beforehand, but I wanted to ask you again, and just for those who are new here, can you tell us a little bit about Nerds Rule and how it all came to be and what your mission is with it?
So, Nerds Rule Inc. was birthed out of a lot of places here in my community, just volunteering and looking at all the work. And I really wanted to dive in deeper to what people were doing in the communities. The one thing I didn't see as I was volunteering, I wanted to see a bullying prevention program that was not only for people of color, but I wanted to do it for girls. You know, sometimes they tell us we're too sensitive, we cry too much. So I decided to create Nerds Rule Inc. When you go to the website, you'll look at these little glasses because when I was growing up, I was picked on because I wore bifocals. My doctor misdiagnosed me and gave me bifocals when I was in third grade. So when I walked in the classroom, I had these huge, big black glasses on. And I remember this little boy turned around, he goes, "Whoa, your eyes are huge." And I was like, oh my God, I went home, I was crying. And I told my mom I didn't want to wear these glasses anymore. To fast forward, in the community, I sat down with a couple of mentors and they told me, well, what do you want to do? What's your heart's desire? And I said, I wanted to create a bullying prevention project. And I did that. And I was always called a nerd. You're such a nerd. You read too much. You like science. You know, we don't do that in our neighborhood. You know, you're supposed to be outside and playing. And I did that, but I liked science so much. And I came up with Nerds Rule Inc. In 2011, I launched Nerds Rule Inc. I was in a Bible study and I remember writing down my notes, this is what I want to do in the next 3 years. And I put it aside because at that time I didn't believe that I could do anything in my community because I didn't have the resources. And I just started volunteering my time and getting mentors, people who wanted to pour back into me, who already succeeded. And getting mentors was the best decision that I made because I partnered up with the Yellow Ribbon organization, and it was such a beautiful journey of having the president of that time sit down with me and not only plant seeds, but also be my friend. It was a great experience. And I think that she was put in my life for a season because I haven't seen her since 2016. It was just her time just to sit down with me and coach me, teach me how to be a team leader. And she did a very good job with other mentors.
I wanted to kind of circle back and ask about, in the beginning, you said that you wanted it to be for girls because there's a lot of stereotypes that come with just being a girl. And if we want to be leaders, if we want to do anything, basically, there's always some sort of stigma or assumption attached to it. Whether if we say, I want to be a nurse, there's a kind of like, oh, well, yeah, no, duh. But then if you say you want to be a surgeon, they're like, oh, good for you. That's
Right.
really nice, you know? So when you were first starting this, you said you founded and you fully began Nerds Rule Inc. in 2011. Were there any hardships that you just noticed as a woman, whether it be a woman of color or just if you're using the general term as a woman, when it came to actually putting this all together and organizing everything to what it's become today?
It was hard. It was hard because you would have all these ideas and you would share them, and people did not believe. In the beginning, people are not going to receive what you put out because, number one, they're not going to believe it. You know, you can have this huge dream, and remember, your dreams come from above. Your dreams come in different varieties, and they're so big. When you write them down, you're like, this is what I believe. Whoever's listening, you have to be careful who you share your dreams with because they will tend to knock them down. Oh, that can't happen. Oh, no, 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 that's impossible. Are you serious? I remember telling people, oh my gosh, you know, I want to expand it international. I want to do this. And everyone's like, oh, you can't do that. And I thought, oh yeah, they're right. Because, you know, I should just do it here in my little community. And the inner voice of myself, my heart was just like, what are you talking about? This can go global. This is 2011. And I'm like, this can go global, you know, and I told the wrong people. I stumbled a lot because I didn't go as hard as I should have. Everybody has that I shoulda, coulda. But sometimes you have to learn how to take your time and understand your imagination is going to be better. It's going to get stronger. It's like a race. It's like a marathon. You want to continue the marathon. And what I was doing was trying to race too fast. I was trying to be, oh, I can do it in a year. No, it didn't happen in a year. The second year, 2012, still wasn't going anywhere. 2013, 14, 15, I was like, oh my gosh, I just created one project. This is horrible, but not understanding how big that project was going to be because people started recognizing who I was. Previous years, I was volunteering, but also learning, but no one paid attention until 2016. It was hard in the beginning, but it was also a lesson. But I don't take those moments for granted because they really help me identify the red flags that I now see, and I could just walk away and feel free from them.
I can only imagine what it's like to work behind the scenes on a project that only you see what the future vision and potential is for
Mhm.
what, 4 or 5 years. Just
Mhm.
no one spending any kind of attention on it. And then one day it's kind of just like, hey, but you're like, no, I was already here. This has already been a thing. Just
Right.
look at the past. I want to ask about that, but before I do, you kept mentioning the right and the wrong people and knowing how to identify the red flags and being able to walk away. What is a quote unquote wrong person and what's a right person?
So, a wrong person is a person that consistently tell you you can't do it, or like you'll share your vision. I can give an example. So, when you create your organization, you have a board. I've had several boards in the beginning of my organization because I didn't know what a board was. Like I just started Nerdrel Inc. in 2011. So I didn't even know I had to have a board until the next year. So I'm just letting people on the board because they were like, oh, I'll help. But they never helped. Every time I would give a suggestion, oh, that's too hard. I can't do that. And I'm like, wow. Now the right people will go, that's a good idea, but let's make it better. Let's see how we can change it. Let's see how we can add. Let's see. When you hear add instead of someone taking, that is the best. Someone sitting down going, let's organize this to make it expand. When you hear big words, I mean, they don't have to be the biggest dictionary word, but when you hear somebody say, you know, let's think about this before we put it out into the community. How will this help the community? Like key words that you know your parents used with you when you were younger. How would this make you feel better? But that wrong person will always doubt you. They will always tell you it's not good enough in some type of way. You get that in a relationship, in business, in school, something. You know that. That's just common sense. And a lot of us don't use our common sense all the time. And I didn't because I was just so ready to get in the community. One board member who has been on my board since 2017, she told me, "What do you see in the next 20 years?" What? 20 years? Girl, I've been only doing this for 4 years. But she said 20 years. And I went, I don't know. And she said, well, why don't you sit down and write it out, and then we'll meet for lunch and sit down and talk about it. And I was like, what? And this board member has been my friend since high school. She's been on my board. And I have another board member who has been my friend since the 5th grade. A lot of these friendships and people who are on my board, we have been knowing each other for a long time. The people before this board that I have now, oh my gosh, they were just like international. That's not gonna work because you need this paperwork, you need this, you need that. I knew I had to get it. I knew it was going to happen, but they just had to believe. And none of them believed. It was like a controlling type of environment. That's what you get when you work for somebody. They're always hands-on and controlling. I wanted people to come in and have a fun environment to help our communities. And it wasn't like that in the beginning. It was so draining and depressing in the beginning of Nurtural Inc.
That sounds it. I can very clearly understand the right and the wrong now.
Mm-hmm.
There's this like age-old thing of don't hire your friends or family or don't work with friends and family. And
Right.
so many times people are either proven right or wrong by that statement. And I
Mm-hmm.
always really like it when they're proven wrong because sometimes having that person, even though they're biased, it helps.
Right. It's like now the contract for Nurtural Inc. is every 4 years. So now we have to go another 4 years. So I'm really excited to see who stays. But everybody has. Ever since 2017, I've still had the same board. And I'm very blessed. Next year is going to be more intense. I'm getting to prepare them because there's so many opportunities for Nurtural Inc. that I'm aligning in with that I want my board to understand. And they do. They understand my heart. They understand that I love to plant seeds of hope. And when you have a board, they're just there to water the seeds. That's your right people. They're there to water the seeds. They know they're going to grow. But when you have the wrong people, they don't water them. They just let them die. So when you see the fruits of your labor growing, that's when you have the right people. But if you're still in a dead space, you have the wrong people on your team.
It also speaks to the efficacy in your role as a leader
Mm-hmm.
because you can turn a wrong person into a right person. I believe if you obviously are aligned in your morals and your ethics, like that's like the first and foremost. If you're not, then no matter how much planting you're going to do, they're never going to water. I've talked with so many different business owners and founders, and they all are just like sharing company culture. Share whatever makes your heart beat.
Mm-hmm.
Remind them every day of who you're working for, what you're working for. And the who is always the customer. It's never the boss. It's always like you're in this for a specific reason, whether it's for a paycheck or to genuinely change the world. That's your prerogative. But
Mm-hmm.
this is what we're after. This is why we started this. And if you want to be part of that, then we welcome you. And the amount of people who like that and then take that and they're like, yes, this is my mission. This is my vision. They'll be the ones who will water those seeds. And it really just speaks to you as a leader.
And then you said one of the key words, heartbeat. When I used to teach 3rd and 4th grade, I used to teach my students to understand the heartbeats in the class. And that's not only just the people you're around, but if you understand the heartbeat of your business, like you really know the heartbeat, other people will understand the heartbeat as well. Like when a mother has a child and the child, like when they put the child on the mom's chest, that baby automatically knows that's my mom because I understand the heartbeat. So if you understand somebody else's heartbeat, it's perfect. When you look at other businesses around the world, look at Amazon. Everybody knows the heartbeat of Amazon. That's why it expands so fast. And you see his journey too of he was in his garage and look how big it is because people understood the heartbeat. They knew that this person wanted to expand. That's where Nurtural Inc. is right now. My heartbeat of Nurtural Inc. and what I am right now is the World Kindness Movement General Secretary of Kindness. People understand the heartbeat of who I am and what I've created, not only here in San Diego, but around the world.
When it comes to Amazon, I like that you use that as a as an example, because people understand like he does really, really care about customer satisfaction. He
Mhm.
looks at those metrics, he studies that data, and it's what differentiates him from a lesser known brand that we don't even know the name of.
Mhm.
When you take that and you apply it to Nerds Rule Inc., how do you think your approach will help you reach this international level that you see?
Well, you have to understand that Amazon and other organizations have set out a blueprint for us in a different way. So, with me, with my blueprint, mine would be the resources that we have for Nerdroll Inc. You know, I'm a mental health advocate, and right now, mental health is on a rise. So we have mental wellness. A lot of people don't like that word, mental health, because the way how it's put out into our communities is not really educating our communities on what is mental illness. So with my organization, we call it mental wellness. We want people to be well with their mental health. I have anxiety. Sometimes my anxiety attacks are like on level 2000. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what can I do? And I had to figure it out for myself. Like, I know I have a great therapist, but sometimes my therapist will work my nerve. She would be like, oh, and buy this book. No, I don't want a book. I need you to help me take this down. You know, that was the beginning of my therapy. Like, why is she telling me to go buy a book? Like, what are you doing? I don't want to read. I don't want to take a pill. I don't want to drink nothing. What can you do? And I remember telling my therapist one day, like, you're not really helping me. And the way she looked at me, I'm like, no, it's like my first therapy session, you giving me 5 books. I don't want to read no more. Some of these books are not even helping me. April of this year, she was like, well, get this book right here. And I remember staring at her and she was like, what's wrong? I said, this is not going to work. And she's like, what do you mean? I said, it's not you. I said, I'm thinking of the person who really wants something to change immediately. That's what I took back from my own personal therapy session. What can I give to my community that a therapist can't? What if they can't afford therapy? What if they need a free resource that they can go online and go, this is perfect. This is what I need. What if there's a person who's afraid to speak out? They don't know how to express themselves. So that's what Nerdroll Inc. is, creating a safe space for people to actually speak and have a voice and learning how to communicate. There's a lot of people that don't know how to communicate. I was a horrible communicator before Nerdroll Inc. I didn't know how to just express myself. It was horrible. If something happened, I would be like, oh, okay, that's fine. That's not life. That is not life. Just letting it brush off. You have to say something at a certain point of your life. And that's what Nerdroll Inc. is, giving people back their voices. Because so many of us have been silent on different topics in our life.
Yeah.
And that's where I see Nerdroll Inc. being that type of resource where people can go, oh my gosh, when I went to this seminar or this workshop, I learned how to love myself. I learned how to recognize the signs of when I'm having an anxiety attack. There's other organizations that do that, but it's great when they can see that the person who created the curriculum also went through that as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I
Mhm.
wanted to ask about that because the way that you're saying people need to know that their voice doesn't have to be silenced and knowing how to unsilence their voice, I'm curious to know the ways in which your voice was silenced throughout this entire process.
Well, I can say it's a healing process. The reason why I can say it like that is because during that time, and I did an interview back in 2018, she also asked me the same question. And I said, there was a time where we only could take a shower with swim shoes. That's how dirty the hotels were. That I only had 2 pair of shoes. I'm getting choked up because I'm just like, wow, it was just by the grace of God that I'm really sitting here in a good space. Because I remember going to school. I had a best friend. Her mom worked for LA Gear. I'm telling my age now. But I remember her telling her mom, I want to give her a pair of shoes. And I was like, oh my God, LA Gears, LA Gears was like Nike back then. If you had LA Gears, it was like, oh my gosh. And I remember I used to like New Kids on the Block and, so I remember her bringing me these shoes and I was like, oh my gosh, these are LA Gears. Like, oh my gosh. And I remember bringing them and my mom's like, make sure you take care of those shoes because you have your dress shoes for church and then you have, your swim shoes. And I remember my mom telling me and promising me, we won't live like this for long. My mom is like my superhero. And that's why I think I go so hard for my organization because I know how it feels to not have. I don't take it for granted. Like I see a lot of people go through something and I'm like, what do you need? That's why I created Nurture Link because it was just like, I saw a lot of people who didn't know how to get out of what they were in. And the only reason why I know how we got out of it is because of my mom's faith. She knew that she could make our lives better. She knew, hey, what if I go back to school and learn more trades and do this? I can make my children's life better. And just seeing my mom go back to school and learning trades and bettering her education, I thought, wow, let me be a better person. I was that little girl who always wanted to make sure that someone else was better than me. And I've always been like that. They have this thing in church, it's called testimony service. Like you say, what are you thankful for? And every testimony service, I would say, I'm thankful for my mom, my family, and my friends. And everyone used to laugh like every time because they would be like, she's so grateful for her friends and her family because I knew that's all I had. That's all I needed is good people, family, and faith. When you get older, it expands. You learn how to expand who you are as an individual. And you learn how to educate yourself in a way that it will be respectful. It will also be able to shift places. You can walk into a room and you can shift that place, that audience. You can learn how to speak in a way that it can plant a seed in someone's life and they'll remember who you are. When I see my teens and my youth and my young adults and they see me, they go, wow, you changed my life because you taught me this. And I'd be like, I did? Like, I didn't know I was doing that at that time, but it makes me happy that I went through that in my life. Not having what my friends would have didn't delay me. It just prepared me for where I'm about to go now in my life. Like my life is starting to be in alignment and being an example to people. You're never delayed. It's just timing. And sometimes we think, God, it's taking too long. And no, it's all about alignment. The timing's right. The doors are going to open. And I believe that's what Nerdrel Inc. is about to go to that next level where people are going to go, oh my God, where has she been? I've been here. But it had to be in alignment to break and shift places that really needed me at a space and level that I can handle where I'm going.
For people that are listening to this, obviously you're a very strong woman, very determined, very passionate. There's this idea that floats around with, I guess you can say, the new generation of entrepreneurs. And it's, do you delay the short-term gratification for the long term? And all these different, tips and tricks of how you can delay that short-term gratification and why you shouldn't be chasing the next high and all these things. You're a prime example of that, I feel. It's really humbling to know like what the two different sides of the extremes are. And it also just really begs in mind, like, how do you get through? Like you mentioned faith, but what does that look like on a day to day?
For me, it was all about determination and also action. Like, what are my action steps? What I mean by action steps, sometimes people can't write down what they need to do. I don't want to write down what I need to do. I don't got time. People don't have time. It's like they need that right now. And that's what I had to learn. Like, what is my right now? I need you to help me right now. I've been in that space. There's so many things that I have loss that I had to start over. I remember, and I'm going to share a quick story. I used to do clinical research. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm doing this, I'm working, I'm learning all these trades, I'm going to school. And I remember that I got into this position that I was making really good money, and I wasn't paying attention to my body. And I wind up having a slight stroke. And I was so angry at God. Like, what are you doing? This is the first time I've ever had this in my bank account, and you gonna take me? Oh no, what you doing? I was angry. I was like, what? I got a nice car. I'm traveling. Like, what are you doing? This is great. I don't have any children. I can go. And I remember when I was in the hospital, I was so angry because they fired me from my job. I had no insurance. They let me go because it was just like, well, that's her fault she got sick. That's not our fault. That was 2 times that I was angry. I was like, okay, God, hold up. I don't got no job. I don't got no insurance. I'm about to lose my car. What did I do wrong? During this time, I'm still trying to run Nerdroll Inc. So I'm like, I have to have a job because I have to pour into Nerdroll Inc. because I need to pay. All this stuff was happening. And I remember they had to pull fluid from my spine because they thought, well, let's try to figure out why she had this slight stroke, what's going on with her body. I was losing my sight, my face. I was in my bed. During that time, you couldn't have visitors. Like my mom and my sister had to leave. And I remember my mom looking back at me, and she had a little tear in her eye, and she was like, are you okay? And I was like, no, I'm angry. I'm really mad because I was doing really good the first time in my life. She's like, well, where's your faith? I was like, Mom, okay, it's time to go. Y'all can go home now. And I remember the door closing, and I remember, yeah, where is my faith? Like, I totally lost faith. And I remember still my eyes are crossed. I remember looking out the window, and there was this bright light. It was dark, but this bright light came in my room. And I was just like, God, if that's an angel, why are you letting it visit me now? And why didn't an angel visit me while I was going through all of this? And I remember closing my eyes, and I was like, if God is real, this will change for me, because they were saying that I wasn't going to walk, that, I had something in my spine. I remember them putting this long needle in my back and pulling all this fluid out of my spine. Like, this was the most horrible season of my life. And here's somebody who wants to change the world. And well, why is this happening to me? And I remember coming back in the room, and I remember hearing a voice saying, every person that comes in here, you pray for them. And I'm thinking, I was in my 20s. If I can't walk again after they take this fluid out and they figure out what's in my spine, I'm done. And I remember that last night, I just sat there in my bed, and I was just like, you know what? If this is what it takes for me to be a stronger person and learn what faith is, I guess I'm going to learn. That experience was just it just changed my perspective on what is faith, because I had to find faith within myself. I knew there was a higher being, but I had to find the faith in myself to figure out, why am I feeling this? And when I felt the faith in myself, now some people could be like, how can you find faith in yourself? You do have to find the faith in yourself. You have to dig in deep and knowing who you are. A lot of people who go through strokes or anything, they self-blame themselves. They go, oh my God, this happened because blah, blah, blah. I did this to this person. I did that. We don't think when something happens to us, we just think bad right away. And that's what I did. So I had to dig deep into myself and find out, how can I change the situation? How can I change the depression that I'm feeling? Depression in our community is, you're crazy. You're having a mental breakdown. Like, depression was not really taught to me correctly. And that's when I became a mental health advocate as well, during that time of my sickness, because I was self-diagnosing myself, not realizing you are actually speaking death over yourself. Because that's how communities are. They're not really teaching people how to speak life into themselves. So the more I start speaking life into myself, the better I start getting. My doctors and my nurses was like, wow, your eyes are starting to come back, because I start speaking to myself. I start speaking, I'm going to be well. I'm going to walk out of here. Those test results are going to be negative. I remember them coming back with the spinal stuff. And they're like, oh, there's nothing in your spine. Like, anybody listening, you have to start speaking life back into yourself. Like, you could be going through the worst things in your life, but start speaking life to yourself. I have this one exercise that I created, and it's about looking at yourself in the mirror. I remember looking at myself in the mirror. Now I can say it, but I look like a monster. That's what I thought I looked like. I wasn't. That's what I felt like I looked like. But the more I started saying, hey, you look beautiful today, even though my mouth was crooked and my eyes were crossed, I kept talking to myself, you look beautiful today. I know you don't feel good. You're going to get better. And the more I kept saying that, the more the doctor was telling me, oh, your mouth is coming back to normal. I have a picture. Sometimes I look at it and I get choked up. But even the nurse I had that whole week, she was like, you know what? You're getting better. This doesn't happen to people who have a slight stroke. We thought you were going to be in here months. That 7th day, I was released, because I kept speaking life. I kept going, I'm gonna get out of here. I know I lost my job. So, okay, let me stop saying I'm gonna lose something else. Let's start speaking life. I'm gonna get a better job. Maybe I'll get it in a month. Maybe I just had to start speaking life, because I was so used to speaking so negative over myself. That's where Nerdrel Inc. teaches people to start speaking life over themselves.
And we're almost up for our time today, but just to end with the speaking life into yourself, I can feel like that is projected in everything that you do with Nerds Roll Inc. It's very obvious. You go on the website, you read all the information. It's very obvious. There were a couple of projects that I noticed that you had for Nerds Roll Inc. And I didn't want to speak on them because you're going to be much more articulate in that than I am. But I want to ask, when it comes to it, there's like ambassador projects, there's the main programs that you guys have. I think we said it before, there are 17. There are projects that you probably haven't even made public yet. How do you breathe life into everything that Nerds Roll Inc. does in such a way that you know that it will stand the test of time and it will stand even after you pass, after you're gone, even though it's very much into the future? How does what you do today, the faith that you have, how does that set you up in a way that you're thinking for the future, not just for your lifetime, but for generations after?
The projects that I have are my own self experiences. I always said in the community, as a community leader, that the age group 10 to 21 needs a cheat sheet. I've always said that, 10 through 21. During those times, those are the hardest years. Think about it, 10 through 21. I mean, even after 21, they're hard. But that cheat sheet, it'll help the next generation. That's what Nerdrel Inc. is, to help that 10-year-old go, oh my God, I'm a teenager. Because, when you're like that age, you're still learning. But when you turn, there's something about a 10-year-old when they turn 10. It's a scary season for them, because they're like, in 8 years, oh my God, I'm going to be 18. Oh my God, I'm going to be 21. It's like, oh my gosh. I remember when I was during that season of my life, I was just like, wow, I'm still figuring out what I want to do. And then I remember turning 18. I was like, wow, this went by so fast. Then when I turned 21, I was like, oh my gosh, can the clock slow down? Because this is getting too, oh, wait a minute, hold up. 21? Oh my gosh, and they say 21, you can go do whatever you want. You've grown, you're doing all this. But when you hit 21, that's reality. That's just like, especially for a woman. Now, social media wasn't back out when I was growing up. And me and my friends laugh about it now. Like, we send each other, all these things like, oh my gosh, what if we would have had social media when we were in school? Social media, it's a curse and it's a blessing for some people. And what Nerdrel Inc. and all the projects that we have, we at Nerdrel Inc., want to show individuals how they can turn that social media into something better for their lives. Social media also, it's a great place. It's not bad. Some social media is bad and some is very uplifting. Some of it is very needed. That is my faith. That is my journey, that people will catch on to Nerdrel Inc. a little faster. I'm starting to get the process, and I'm starting to understand that age group. When you turn on the news, they need us. They need that cheat sheet. And I really believe when we come that Amazon type environment, that age group will go, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I needed. This is the place. This is my safe space. And a lot of teens and young adults need safe spaces, because you have to realize their parents didn't have a safe space. So if their parents didn't have a safe space, they're not giving their children a safe space. So if they can go out into the world of Nerdrel Inc. and the other projects that we have and create a safe space here, they can go home and plant that with their parents, their cousins, or whoever, whatever they're learning, they can plant that seed, and turn it around and go, oh, wow, where'd you learn that from? This lady with these glasses, I went into her workshop and she taught me about self-love. I never loved myself. What is love? People who are listening, you're going to identify and understand things about yourself that no one was willing to discuss with you when you were younger. I learned so much about myself creating these programs. I'm growing every day. I'm learning. I'm grieving. There's some things that I grieve about with Nerdrel Inc. that I wish that it could have been, but it's going to get better. I'm so happy for this opportunity to discuss what we are doing in the community. And I hope whoever's listening, that they'll be able to connect with me and go, what do you need? What is the resources that you need, that we can make sure that the next generation will have the resources that you created? 10 through 21 really needs a safe space.
And that's a really, really powerful note that I think we can end on. And I want to thank you very much for your time and for sharing everything here. It's given a lot for me to think about, and I'm sure for viewers to think about.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. And thank you for allowing this space and this interview to be life-changing, not only for myself, because I got to speak about not only my experiences as a founder and a CEO, but also what we can do as a community that doesn't look like us, that we can do this together. It doesn't have to be, oh, it's just her organization. No. What can I do to partner up with you to make sure that we support everybody who needs a safe space?
And that wraps up today's episode of Vibrant Living Diaries. It's been an absolute pleasure having you with us. A huge thank you to our guest for sharing your expertise, and to the International Wellness Alliance for making this all possible. And we hope that you've been inspired to take the next step forward in your own wellness journey. As always, we're eager to hear your thoughts and experiences. Connect with us on our social media platforms and share how you're integrating the knowledge gained here into your daily life. I'm Danielle Grobman, and can't wait to continue this journey with you in our next episode. Until then, keep exploring, stay curious, and embrace the vibrant life you deserve. Speak soon.